Yesterday, during Reconciliation Day events in Vredendal, our president confirmed that South Africa's first national dialogue will be held next year. This will be a platform to address the country's long-standing socio-economic and political challenges. The dialogue will tackle pressing issues such as poverty, unemployment, land reform and corruption, while also addressing social concerns like gender-based violence, racism and inequality. The initiative, says our president, is critical to advancing the reconciliation project initiated nearly 3 decades ago. The national dialogue will engage stakeholders. Well, that's what national dialogues do. They engage stakeholders from civil society, traditional leaders, the faith-based sector, business and cultural organizations. The media? What about us? To ensure diverse representation. There will be, of course there will be. This is a national dialogue. How can there not be an advisory panel and a steering committee? The dialogue will reshape the political landscape by fostering inclusive policymaking and strengthening democracy. Will it really? Or will it just waste time? Peter Bruce wrote about this in his column in the Sunday Times on Sunday. And Peter, good afternoon. You called it right. Cyril was going to say this yesterday. If you look at what he said and how he said it, does it in any way remove your cynicism about the process?
No, not at all, I'm afraid. Hi, John. It's already a mess. This started about a year ago, when a fellow called Oyama Mabandla was writing a book about what had gone wrong in South Africa, and he suggested that perhaps everybody should get together, have a proper, honest discussion about what's gone wrong, and do something about it. And Thabo Mbeki then picked it up early in the new year, but it was not something anybody wanted to do before the election, in case the ANC kind of used it as to grandstand ahead of May 29th. So it's been sort of a back and forth, and what Ramaphosa stood up and said in Vredendal yesterday was so interesting, because it isn't remotely what Oyama Mabandla or Thabo Mbeki were hoping it would be. They, I think, want something much more deep and fundamental, rather than discussing issues of gender-based violence or corruption or all the sort of, hoary issues that we all know about. I suspect that what Ramaphosa did yesterday was kind of take it over, take it out of the hands of all of the foundations, the Mandela Foundation, the Mbeki, Biko Foundation, who had been kind of hoping that they would lead the national dialogue. Ramaphosa has really taken it away from them, in the hope, I suspect, stopping it becoming a kind of new CODESA, where people get around a table and try and hammer out an entirely new country and a new constitution. You can see why he's a bit nervous about it. But sadly, and also there's a lot of rivalry between him and Thabo Mbeki over the thing. And Mbeki's been very vocal about social compacting and dialogues and this kind of thing. So Ramaphosa basically has, I think, rather sort of burst the balloon a little bit. He'll name the steering committee. He'll name the committee of wise men and women, and he'll include a couple of the foundations on it, and he'll control it, and he'll ensure that doesn't do too much harm.
But Peter, surely we know by now, or we should know by now if we don't, and we're not going to learn what we don't know in a year of national dialogue, what to do about poverty and unemployment and land reform and corruption. No. I do think that we, as South Africans, need to be talking to each other. More than that, we need to be listening to each other. We need to be listening to other perspectives. But a year of national dialogue must not replace action. If it runs as a important but far less critical adjunct to real action to deal with these issues, fine. But if it becomes, as I suspect it will, a substitute for action, hold on a second, we can't do that because that hasn't come up in the national dialogue yet.
I suspect that's exactly what would happen. The ANC is not used to running open discussions. So what the ANC does ahead of all of its legislation, as you know, it will go around and ask communities around the country what they think and come back and say that they've consulted the public and that everyone agrees that the scorpions should be abandoned or whatever it was that they were trying to test. So the chances of us being an open and honest discussion about what we can do and then doing it are virtually nil. It's already very politicized. Every mad person and their family is going to stand up and say their piece about how the economy should be run or how this should be run or that should be run. And I can't see, however eminent you may be, that you would be able to sit at a table at the head of a community hall and control a discussion such that it delivers you a reasonable argument and takes things further than they've ever gone before. I mean, I think it's a hopeless project, but it's deep inside the ANC, this kind of thing. The ANC is a talk body, and that's what they know. And that's things like dialogues and declarations are what it does best. And, it's going to happen whether you and I like it or not, and we can take it seriously or we can enjoy it, because I don't think it's going to do much harm. There'll be some colorful argument, and I think that'll be the end of it. What you don't want is for people, as I said earlier, to think that they are negotiating the shape of a new country, because I think that would be quite alarming.
Paddy Lehohla, the former statistician general, was on Newsroom Africa a little earlier. I wasn't able to hear what he was saying because I'm in the studio, but every now and then they put up key aspects of it. And at one point he said, democratic dividends for black and coloured South Africans has been a disaster. And there is a huge degree of truth. Of course, there are black and coloured elites who have benefited from the ending of apartheid, and the black professional classes have grown, not as fast as they should have, and they've grown too much in the public sector rather than the private sector. But by and large, that is an unassailable truth. And all of our focus should be on providing democratic dividends for black and coloured people in South Africa.
But absolutely. But the problem is, the policies designed to provide the dividends are poor, are bad policy. And how do you do that? I mean, how do you change policy without changing the people who run the country? And it's not simply poor delivery or lack of action. It's actual a lot of it is really bad policy. If you're chasing investment, so economies only grow through investment, and particularly only grow through productive investment that improves productivity. That's where the growth is. And if you can't attract the investment, you're not going to grow. And our policies to attract investment, quite frankly, are appalling. They are, whether it be black empowerment or you can do this, but the labor laws, etc. So we put so many chains on people who might want to spend their money here that they don't spend their money here. And the result is what we can all see. There's no jobs being created. There's no new greenfield investment going on in the country. What investment we do see at Ramaphosa's investment conferences the last 3 years of his presidency, those were all just companies promising what they would have spent anyway to operate. And it's about half of what the country needs to create jobs. You need fixed investment of about 25% of your GDP a year, and we were doing basically around 12%. That's where we are, and more often than not, less than that.
Peter, thank you very much. Peter Bruce, columnist with Sunday Times and Business Day newspaper, and a man with a very long and illustrious career in newspapers in South Africa.